basically, what I wanted to ask you. Well, first off, like just start off, I guess, with what your name is, how old you are, what's your birthday, um, basic things like that. So, what's your name? What is your name?
We starting already?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sandra Schulte,
Okay. And then how old are you now?
82,
And then when was your birthday?
May 25th, 1936.
36. And then how many children do you have?
4,
4 children. And what were their names?
Billy, Sharon,
Billy being the oldest.
Billy being the oldest. Sharon, my second. Robert and Susan,
Okay.
my youngest.
And you
I
were,
lost Billy and Susan.
right. And you were married to
I was married to William Schulte.
Ed, and you when were y'all married?
We were married September the 19th, 1953.
1953. And where did y'all meet?
We lived a block from one another. We went to school together. We were in the same class together. In elementary.
In elementary, grammar school.
High school.
What school did y'all go to?
Went to Washington, George Washington Elementary, and then Francis T. Nichols High School, which is no longer that name anymore.
And that's in like downtown New Orleans.
Yes. No. Yes.
Ninth Ward.
Yes, in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Ninth Ward.
Yeah. And where were you born at?
I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, and I lived in Stark, Florida, till I was about 8 or 9, somewhere around there. Then we moved to New Orleans. I lived with my grandmother on a farm in Stark,
Okay.
and my cousin, my kids.
And when you were born, well, what were your parents' names?
My mother's name was Delia Ida Williams. And my latest name was Rita.
Mm-hmm.
And my father's was Robert Lee Terrace. He was born in Jacksonville.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah.
One?
Yeah.
I just want to ask you, are you staying all day?
No.
Should I play for lunch?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Did you bring the baby swimsuit?
No. So those were your parents,
Yes.
and then you have brothers and sisters.
I have 2 half brothers and 1 half sister.
Okay.
From
And what are the age ranges, or starting from the oldest?
Shirley
Was the oldest,
was the oldest, deceased, then it was me.
but she had a different last name than you.
Yes, she was an Arnett. My mother was married 3 times.
Right.
And then I was born a Terratus. And then my brother Arthur was Haritas, and my brother Jimmy Haritas. The only ones surviving now is Jimmy and I.
Right. And Uncle Jimmy was the youngest.
He's the youngest.
Yeah.
He's 8 years younger than me.
And so like, did you ever live in Mexico, or
No,
no?
no. My mother was born there, my grandmother was born there, but they moved to the United States,
Do you know where in Mexico?
Mexico City,
Mexico City, Mexico.
and Teotihuacan City.
Okay.
It's a little town by the pyramids.
Okay. Pyramids by Mexico City. So, one second. Things are important for it to record so that I can show, or my children can see, or anyone could really see, so that we have a record in some way.
That's a good idea, because
Right.
there's so much that I even have forgotten that my grandmother told.
Right, and we sort of manipulate our own memories, so we sometimes can't even remember properly our own what we actually lived through. So so did you have any other? Hold on a second. So when you were younger, and how old were you when you moved to New Orleans? About 8,
About 8 or 9.
8 or 9, and then you moved into a house in the Ninth Ward,
Yeah, on Royal Street.
not far away from Papa.
Yeah, 40 block, and we lived in the 4100 block.
The what?
I lived in the 4000 block, and he lived in the 4100 block.
Okay. And y'all went to school together,
We went to
and y'all
school
became
together.
friends,
Yeah,
and y'all would walk to school.
no,
How would you get to school?
I would walk to school, but I thought you meant he and I walk to school together.
Well, I was, but you didn't walk together, but you would walk.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we walked to school.
Okay. And then y'all were in the same school, but not the same grade, obviously.
Yeah, we were, because he was 2 years behind.
How was
He 2 years older than me, but he went to Catholic
'Cause he was bad.
school. Yeah, and he went to Catholic school and didn't do good, so
He
put
got
him in public school and they put him
he got the
back.
ruler a lot.
Hmm?
He got hit with the ruler a lot.
Yeah.
by like nuns.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he was inaudible. That was strange.
Yeah.
But when I would go to church on a Sunday, I'd pass his house to go to church.
Hmm.
And his mother would always sit outside on the Sundays, especially in the hot weather, warm weather. And she would say,
And what was his mother's name?
Caroline, but they call her Carrie.
Carrie. Okay. Schulte.
Huh?
Schulte.
Yes. Her maiden name was Huff, H-O-F.
H-O-F. Okay.
And she would say, "How is Billy?" And I would tell her that he was bad, did this, that, and the other. And the next day at school, he would just get all over me because I would
Tattle on him.
tell him.
So y'all became friends, though.
It wasn't until a couple of years later, in high school, that we became like
Friends.
friends.
Friendly.
Good, yeah. And he asked me out on a date, and I went.
Where did y'all go?
First
Do
date
you
was, we went on a streetcar to Canal Street to go to a movie.
Okay.
This,
Do you remember what movie?
remember the movie?
What movie it was? Do you remember?
It was, I don't remember the name, but I know it was a funny movie.
It was a comedy.
Yes. And it was at the Lowe's Theater.
Lowe's Theater.
Mm-hmm. And after, we went to Walgreens, and we had a sundae.
So Walgreens was different than what we know now,
Yeah.
because
It had a counter for food, and a food counter and all, and so.
it was like a short order kind of place, or
Yeah.
was it like a little diner in a way?
Well,
It was
he
a
had
store.
diner in there.
Hmm.
Oh.
But could you buy like medicine and things there
Oh,
too?
yeah,
It was like a little store.
Yeah, but they had the counter. Most all places had the diners in there, like the dime stores. they would have counters in there for food. You know,
Mhm.
you would sit at the counter with the stools. There was no table and chairs.
Right, but they would make the food for you. It wouldn't be like you were buying prepackaged
No,
food
no,
or something
no,
like that.
No.
And they would have like ice cream or something.
Yeah, ice cream mostly.
Yeah.
Ice cream and sandwiches and hamburgers and hot dogs.
When they would have ice cream and things like that, would they sort of like normally the places like that would it be made by them there, or would it be like they buy it from somewhere else and
I
serve
really
it?
don't know if they did or not. I'm assuming that they made it there.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't know, you know, because it was just served to us,
Right.
you know.
You didn't care too much about that part of it.
No, no, not at all. It was just great to get a ice cream sundae.
Yeah. So you and him went to the movie, and then y'all went to Walgreens.
I had an ice cream sundae,
Uh-huh.
and then we went home. And
So it was just you and him,
yeah, Yeah.
and y'all went downtown by yourselves
yeah, on the streetcar.
as a teenager.
Yeah, and then he said he would ask his daddy to loan him the car to take me out again. He didn't like going on the streetcar either. So, yeah.
Now it's sort of nice to ride on a streetcar, and not as nice. It's a little bit better experience
Yeah.
to do things like that.
Yeah,
We're always in a car now.
yeah, yeah.
So y'all started spending more time together after that.
Yeah, I still would go to my girlfriend's house on Congress Street.
Uh-huh.
And everybody would meet at her house. We're really not at her house, not in her house, I mean, outside. We always stayed outside. We didn't go into one another's houses.
So you would stay on a stoop outside.
Yeah, on the porch, on the street. Everybody would congregate there
And that would be sort of like your way of hanging out and communicating.
mm-hmm.
And and people would
Yeah.
walk past you, and you would, talk with them or whatever
Yeah.
as they passed.
Yeah, we always did. And everybody had their bikes. And he would ride me home on his bike a lot. Because he worked at a drugstore delivering prescriptions to people at their houses. So he had a bike.
Okay.
And he did that. And he would stop by us and he'd say, I'm off of work. Just want to ride home. And so, he's trying
It's that fly.
So, and I went on vacation, and
Thanks.
when I came back, everything was like my girlfriends all had got boyfriends, and they clicked together, and so I felt
Not part of.
part of them anymore.
Uh-huh.
And I remember him coming around saying that they all had gone to the beach. And
Where would y'all go to the beach?
what we do at the beach?
No, what beach would y'all go to back then?
Well, we call it Pontchartrain Beach, but we didn't. Pontchartrain Beach was like an amusement park. The
Mhm.
beach.
So you're
was just
talking
the
about
water, the Pontchartrain Lake.
which is close to. It used to be close to where like UNO is now. University of New Orleans is now.
Yeah.
So they used to have a sand area right there, so you can go out into the lake and swim.
Yeah, they had the seawall.
Hmm.
And we go on the seawall and then just go swimming in the lake. There was no sand part.
There was no sand. Okay.
No. It was just, actually, you jump off the seawall, into the
Like
water.
a cement wall.
Mhm.
And you just jump in.
And just go swimming and cool off.
But there was also rides and stuff at the park.
Well, at the park,
At the
yeah,
amusement
there
park.
was riding and charge you to get in, so, I mean, to get into the rides and all.
Right.
So we didn't go there too much. Well, he did take me to the beach one time, and it was the first time I rode on the Zephyr. I was scared to death. Scared to death. Yeah, it was the first time.
And that's probably a mild roller coaster to what they have now. Right?
Oh, yeah, definitely, I would assume, yeah. I never rode it again. But,
Yeah. So you had a lot of friends, girlfriends, and he would have friends also. And
yeah. It was, when we went to high school, we went to Nichols, he was on the football team. And his good friends, Jimmy Michelet.
do you know what he played in football?
Huh?
Do you know what position he played in football?
No, I really don't.
I wouldn't expect you to, but I just
No, I
didn't know
really
if you knew.
don't, because he cut football practice, I remember one time, to walk me home,
Mhm.
and they caught him. And he was carrying my bag, and at that time we wore gym outfits
Mhm.
for gym, like jump bloomers, really. And he had that in my bag, and they made him put that on as a punishment in practice. He ripped it up. And then he left high school to go to work on the river.
So he graduated high school.
Who, me?
Both of you.
No, he didn't.
He did not.
And I didn't either.
Oh, you didn't?
No, later in years, when I was married, I got my GED.
Mhm. But he never did.
No.
And when did y'all leave high school? Like junior year? Or
He left. He left in, I think, the sophomore year. He was 17
Mhm.
when he left. I was 16 when
Okay.
I left. And I went to work.
And where'd you work at?
It was a little on St. Claude Street. It was like a department store, a little small. It was just one department store. It was no bigger than this right here.
Mhm.
But I worked there. And I made $16 a week. And I worked 44 hours a week.
Okay. So you were working essentially a full-time type job
Mm-hmm.
right after you left high school. No, did you still live with your parents during
Yeah.
the time?
Yeah.
So you were trying to get, you finished school, and then you were trying to get your move on, and
Well, things were hard at home, very, very hard. And
what do you mean by that? Like as far as like financially?
yeah,
Okay.
very, very hard. And I couldn't compete with my girlfriends getting dresses and blouses and things, so I wanted that too.
Right, but you couldn't quite afford it.
Yeah, they couldn't afford it. And
Who? I mean, you mean your family couldn't afford it?
yeah, my mother.
Right. Okay.
Because at that time she was so supportive of the whole family. My stepfather had left. Arthur and Jimmy were young. Arthur was like, I took care of him. I took him to school.
What was the house that you lived in like back
It was
then?
a double house.
A double?
Mm-hmm.
And then how many?
Shotgun double.
And then how many rooms? So everybody would have to share a room, basically?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. No. My cousins lived there too. I remember. Oh. Let's see, it was my sister, Arthur, and Jimmy, my mama, my grandmother, Arlene, Patsy, Vilma, me, sister. It was crazy.
So a lot of people
It was
in one
crazy.
in one relatively small house for
Yeah, it was
for
like
that many people,
5 rooms
right?
per side, full.
And it had what, one
Full
bathroom?
ones. Yeah.
One bathroom for that many people.
Well, 1 bathroom on each side.
Oh, right, because it's a double.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Because I was, other than my 2 brothers, I was the youngest of the girls.
Okay.
And when my grandmother, what room I adored. I adored my grandmother. I still miss her.
Do you think that your grandmother was sort of like your special person?
My grandmother was my very special person. Very special.
So she took to you really.
She took care of me. And my mother was left. I was left with her, on the farm in Florida. So I have no memory of my mother and father living together at all.
Mm.
My
But you have memories of each individually, just not together.
well, not too much of them.
Not very many memories
Not
of
too
him.
much.
Do you know what memories you have of him? What can you tell me about him?
Oh, I must have been about, I don't know, 10, 11 years old. And it was during the war,
World
War II.
II.
And my mother found out he was at Alabama, camp in Alabama before he got shipped overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So she took me there to see him. And she went in to see why I didn't get an allotment check. And found out that he didn't put me down as a dependent. He had his mother down as a dependent. Like he denied he had a child.
You would have been his only child, though.
I was his only child. And he got busted from sergeant to private for that, for lying. And so that was one memory.
That was a
very
hard memory to deal with.
It was a hard memory to deal with. That he had denied me, again. So, what other memory? I just have bad memories. In fact, I call him RL now. I don't even call him my father.
RL?
Mm-hmm. His name was Robert Lee.
Like,
And he always signed his name RL Terratus.
okay.
His name was Robert Lee Terratus. And he always signed checks and all RL. So that's what I refer to him as, RL.
Do you know if he had issues as far as some type of issues for drinking or something like that? Or?
He was an alcoholic, a true alcoholic.
So he had alcohol.
An alcoholic. very bad.
He had an addictive type personality, or like an addictive type personality where he was
Yeah.
very.
He was a true alcoholic that, like, he would have to go into a rehab place, not a rehab place, I
At
guess.
that,
they call
whatever
it.
there was at that time.
They didn't call him, I don't know what they
Right.
call him, but he would have to go into the hospital to get cured.
Mhm.
No.
All right. Well,
Me stories about Mexico when the pyramids when she was a little girl and all and that. I loved hearing those stories, you know, from her, and that's why
and
I wanted to go to Mexico to go to the
what
pyramids.
kind of story? Like, I mean, what kind of stories would she tell you?
When
Like,
she was little, her brothers would go to the pyramids because they owned that property. He
they
was
owned-
mayor of the town of Teotihuacan, that little town.
Who was mayor?
Her father,
So your grandmother's father
yes,
was mayor.
was mayor of the little town of Teotihuacan,
Mhm.
which is still there. And she would tell me stories about her brothers going to the pyramids. At that time, it was not like it is now.
It was-
nothing.
It was
all-
deteriorating at that point.
No,
Like it wasn't
was,
being
it
kept up.
was hidden. You know, they had excavated because there was nothing.
It had been overgrown.
Yeah, no. And she said her brothers would go into the caves and all, and now they found that there is true caves there. So she said they would get scared and all because they were young.
Right. It was like a haunted house to them.
Haunted, you know, scare one another and all.
Right.
But she would tell me those stories.
Did you have any nicknames when you were little?
No.
You just always
Sandra.
Sandra? But Papa had different nicknames. I mean, he was William, but he was called Bill or Billy.
I call him Bill.
Okay.
And my son was Billy. And I called him Bill. He always called me Babe.
Mm-hmm.
He always had a loving name. He always held my hand. Even when we went to the grocery store, we'd sit on the sofa, he'd always put his arm around me. He was very affectionate to me. Very loving. Very loving.
But you would also have bad times too. You would have fights and bickers, right? I mean, things aren't always perfect.
No, I remember when.
It's my point is being that your relationship was much like everyone else's, where it's ups and downs.
Mostly ups though. I remember we had a big argument one morning. I'm still in my nightgown. And he picked me up and he carried me out to the pool on David Drive and just dropped me in the pool. He just bust out laughing. And when I came up, I bust out laughing. That was our kind of fights.
And what did can you describe what you looked like when you were younger?
What he was like.
What you looked like? What you physically look like?
I was the ugly duckling.
You what color hair?
Reddish.
Reddish.
Yeah, red hair.
Skinny.
But not the carrot type red. No.
Strawberry blonde. But skinny. Not too tall.
Yeah, I was tall for my.
You were tall for your age when you were younger?
Mm-hmm. And
Have you ever had any
Freckles.
tattoos? You never had any tattoos though.
oh no,
What about Papa? He never had a tattoo?
he didn't like needles. He did not like needles.
And he was in the military.
National Guard.
He was in the National Guard. And can you tell me about like what happened when did he join?
He joined the National Guard um, probably when he quit, probably about when he quit school and he started working. His cousin belonged to the National Guard, so he joined the National Guard.
Okay. And that was essentially his
He
career
would go
in
to
a way.
Camp Polk 2 weeks a year, you know, and
Do training.
he went up to sergeant. He was a leader.
Hmm.
He was a leader type. And even on the riverfront, you know.
Right. He was a foreman on the river.
He worked.
What did he ever go overseas and
No.
no? So he would basically just do training locally.
Yeah. And yeah, that was about it.
So he never had to leave you for that
No.
for an extended period of time.
For two weeks out the year.
Right, but not a really
No,
extended.
not
couple
no
months or
long
anything.
periods of time. No, never. So
So he was able to stay. Once y'all started having children, stay as a family
Well,
man.
we were married September the 19th, 1953, and Billy was born October the 27th, 1954.
Hmm.
So, and then 2 years later, we had Susan, Sharon. And then 4 years later, we had Robert. And 4 years later, we had Susan. And it's ironic because he called the shots. He said, that's going to be a boy, that's going to be a girl, that's going to be a boy, that's going to be a girl. It was funny. It worked. He always had something to say. Like, as long as I have these two hands, he would do this. As long as I have these two hands, you never have to worry about anything. I will always take care of you as long as I can dig ditches. I can do anything as long as I have these two hands.
He was very driven, very focused, and he always willing to
Do anything
do whatever he needed to do
he knew his duties
to provide for his family.
for a family. Very much so. I remember when we bought the house on David Drive. Our notes were $103 a month.
And y'all moved in, so y'all were in New Orleans, and y'all decided to get married,
We were married.
and then y'all bought a house in Metairie and moved there.
Yeah.
Now, when can you tell me about what happened when so you were dating for a while, and obviously he proposed at some point.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about how you proposed? Or?
He didn't actually propose. He just always said, "You are going to be my wife."
Since y'all were
When we were
teenagers.
teenagers, you're going to be my wife.
And then
And
eventually
he did propose.
he proposed and gave you a ring.
Yes.
Do you remember when that happened? Where you were? Obviously, I would hope so.
Yes. We were actually having a Sunday.
A Sunday?
Uh,
Ice cream Sunday.
Ice cream Sunday. He said, "Will you marry me?" And I said, "Yeah, you will." He gave me.
So y'all, and from that point, y'all started preparing to get married. But y'all were still living.
He asked my mother.
He asked your mother.
And in fact, his parents thought that he should ask my father.
Because at that time it was more,
That
that
was-
was the thing to do.
Yeah, that was the thing to do, and his parents were the
Traditional.
old school. So my mama, him, and me, we drove down to Jacksonville. knocked on the door, and he came out, and he said, I want to marry your daughter, and I wondered if you could help with a wedding. And he said that he was taking care of my cousin Connie, that he didn't have that money. So my mother got out furious, had a fight with him. He never asked us into the house or anything.
Right.
No.
But y'all drove from New Orleans to
To
Florida
Jacksonville.
to ask him that unannounced. And I mean, you didn't have text messaging and things like that.
There was no Instagram and all
So you
that.
just drove there,
Yeah.
and then you showed up. So one day y'all showed up, and
So that was that. And so my mother walked me down the aisle.
okay,
And my grandmother made my dress. And we had the reception at my mother-in-law's house. They emptied out one side of their house and we had a reception.
Mhm.
You know, in the house. And it was nice. And then he and I went to
now y'all were living still in your parents' houses separately at that point, or
Yeah.
how?
yeah, we had moved. At that time, all the cousins all had moved, and we one side of the house, one side, the other,
Mhm.
we rented from my mama.
Okay, so y'all were married in one side,
Yeah,
living in one side by
Yeah.
yourself. Okay.
we lived on it was the 4002 Royal. My mama lived at 40,000. We lived at 4002 Royal, and we lived there.
And y'all lived there for how long?
Well, we bought the grocery in the corner. We bought a grocery store,
Okay.
and we ran the grocery store.
Now, was he working on the waterfront at that point too?
Yeah,
So he was working there. You were working a smaller job.
he had the grocery store
Okay.
when we were married.
So you would sort of manage the grocery store, and he would go to the
And he
waterfront.
would come like during his lunch hour and help during the lunch hour because that was our trade.
For his time off. Okay.
Yeah, the riverfront, making
Doing
sandwiches.
stocks or whatever.
Yeah, like making sandwiches, for the guys working on the riverfront
Okay.
at the grocery store.
Do you remember where this grocery store was exactly?
Yeah, right across the street, Royal and Bartholomew.
Roy and Bartholomew.
Yeah, my house was 40, and Cata-cornered was the grocery store.
Okay.
And we worked there. He worked on the river too. I got pregnant for Robert. And I started to miscarriage for Robert. And I was taken to the hospital. I stayed in the hospital. And, back that up. We had found that house on, he said I had to quit that because I was pregnant. So we found the house in Metairie, on David Drive.
Which was a new area at that point. It was
Yeah.
a
Brand
new
new.
up and coming,
Yeah.
extremely large.
Yeah. Yeah, we found, we had gone looking in St. Bernard, and I don't know, he just fell in love with this house. And he,
Can you hold on a second? So you were saying. So what you were saying about the.
that we bought the house.
Right.
And and that's when I was in the hospital.
And you thought you were miscarriaging for Rob.
And I didn't lose him after all. They put me on some kind of medicine, and IVs and all that stuff. So, while I was in the hospital, we found out that we had been approved for the house. Stop. Oh, that we had been approved for the house. So, we sold the grocery.
So how long did you own the grocery for then?
About a year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
Okay. Y'all would do deliveries out of the grocery and stuff like that?
Huh?
Y'all would do deliveries out of the grocery store
Well,
to people?
I don't know what you mean.
I just thought that y'all did deliveries to people's houses from the grocery store.
No.
People would just come there?
No, people would just come in. And
So y'all were you weren't making a lot of money with the grocery store?
no, we made enough to save to put it down on the house.
Mm-hmm.
When we sold the store and the money we had saved, because he was working, the 2 jobs. He was working on the river end.
Mm-hmm. And was he a foreman at that point?
Hmm?
Was he a foreman on the river at that point?
No.
So he was just working, just a worker.
Yeah, carpenter.
Carpenter.
Carpenter. He worked as a carpenter on the riverfront.
Okay.
They outfitted the ships for the grain.
Okay.
They built walls in the middle of the ship.
Okay.
And they climbed the walls, which was extremely dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
So you ended up buying the house
Yeah.
in Metairie and moving in there
Yeah.
just for you two. And how long did y'all live there? Just you two before you started having children? Not long.
No, I did have children because I had Billy and Sharon.
Oh, they
and
lived.
And by that time, Robert was born.
So they lived with y'all in the double.
Yeah, and
For
the
a while.
double and the grocery store.
Okay.
Because we had, they had like an apartment and all,
Mm-hmm.
housing in the grocery store upstairs. So that's where we lived till we moved to Metairie.
And y'all moved in that house and had a pool, and you had 3 kids at that point. Yeah. And y'all ended up having another baby, Susan.
Susan, yeah, she was born there.
In that house.
Uh,
And y'all lived there how long?
Well, after my mother died, RL came down and he wanted to make amends. And he talked to my father-in-law. And he said he had the grocery store in Jekyll Island. And he wanted Bill to come down there, and me to come down there to work in the store. And
So he had a grocery store in Jekyll Island.
yeah.
With a house.
And at that time, he had bought what they call the pharmacy in Jekyll Island and the marina.
Where did he get money for all of that from? Do you know?
No. He was in partnership with his brother for the grocery. And then, I don't know.
It just sounds sort of weird because he told me that y'all went asking him for money to pay for the wedding, and he said he didn't have any, and then later he has businesses. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, I think he said just that he didn't have money because he didn't want to.
Maybe it was at that particular point in his life.
Well,
he was not
yeah,
very.
and he didn't want to rock the boat with his new wife. Yeah.
Okay.
And
But obviously, he moved from Jacksonville to Jekyll Island,
Yeah.
and he got
And
remarried.
his brother was in partnership with him in a grocery store.
Hmm.
And when his brother died, that's when he got the pharmacy. He made a lot of money in the grocery store.
Okay.
The grocery store was, and
So he came to y'all asking you to help him.
yeah, that this could be Bill's future. Get him off the riverfront. And he talked to my father-in-law. And so my mother was gone.
Now, what was Papa's father's name?
His name was Henry Schulte.
And his mother's name was?
Carolina Huff Schulte.
Okay.
And at that time, my mother-in-law had died around that time.
Okay.
And she died of a heart attack. She had high blood pressure. And
It seems like a lot of our family has high blood pressure related issues.
Yeah, on the Schulte side.
Right.
I have very good pressure.
You do?
Mm-hmm. No problem with pressure at all. And so, what was I saying?
So y'all moved to Jekyll Island to start working.
Yeah.
He asked y'all to work, to come and work there. So y'all moved there with 4 children.
Yeah. And he bought a new house on the island, and he wanted he rented us his old house. And he was like, I don't know how to say it, like testing me. I felt like somebody was over my shoulder watching me all the time. He would, the register and all. I was stopped and cleaned. No. He got sick, and he had to come. Well, actually, she brought him to New Orleans for the doctor. And while he was gone, I rearranged the grocery store. Like, things weren't placed in the right place. You know, as a woman, I know when I go to the grocery store, I want this here, I want to find this here, I want that.
Okay.
And I work my ass off.
Mm-hmm.
I worked my ass off. And came back and he was not pleased. I had to put it all back. Well,
how long did y'all live and work in Jekyll Island?
Just a little over a year.
So from what you're sort of telling me is that y'all moved there and you began working there, but you weren't
in the anticipation of bettering
your
Bill's
family.
life, get him off the riverfront, out of the elements.
But as you started working there, you didn't feel comfortable. You didn't feel like what you had expected it to be.
No, not at all. And I worked my butt off. I took care of my children. I took care of my house, and I worked 8 hours in the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And
it was stressful to you.
Yeah. So he got sick. I remember one time, like I tell you, he tested me. And my mistake was, I was driving the car, and he told me to move his car. and there was $100 bill on the floor, and I picked up the $100 bill, and instead of giving it to him, I gave it to Elizabeth, and that was my mistake.
And who was Elizabeth?
His wife.
Just because that was the first person that you saw, so you just, since they're married, you figured just give it to her.
I found this on the floor. Here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. So I think that was a test too. Like I tell you, test. And I think.
Yeah, $100 bill just sitting on the floor, especially at that time.
And telling me to move his car.
Right.
I never, So, wasn't too long, he got sick again and he had to come. And, July, back and forth. And then I got very, very sick. I had torn mouth of my stomach open. I had a hernia. I had a hernia that tore the mouth of my stomach open. And I was like.
From working? I don't know.
I got this hernia, but I was in extreme pain. I couldn't. I couldn't lay down. I had to sit up all the time.
Right.
And he said, "You're not going into work." And Bill said, "No, she can't." And he had a friend that was a doctor on the island, and he brought that doctor over to the house to see me. And the doctor said she has to go to the hospital immediately. So I think that was another test, maybe I'm.
That might not have been a test. That might have been just having a friend come check on you, make sure that you're all right.
Yeah.
It
So,
could have been, but we don't really know that.
And he never went back, and I had the surgery. And I remember him standing at the foot of the bed, and that was it. Never came back again. And then he got sick and he left. And then I heard.
How was he getting sick? What was he sick with? Was this related to his alcohol?
He had oh God, let me think. That disease. Where you want Parkinson's.
He had Parkinson's.
He was getting Parkinson's, and he was on medications. His sister worked at a nursing home and would get him, like, instead of alcohol, he would get drugs. He was on drugs too.
So he began using drugs, pain relieving type medication.
So, yeah.
How bad was he with Parkinson's? Do you know? Towards the end, was he like? There's different levels from what I know.
It wasn't.
Just slight shaking, or did he have like very little control, motor control?
He had some control.
I mean,
when he was away, he said, "I don't want y'all at the store anymore. I don't want you there anymore."
So he came back.
House,
so he was sick. He came back and he told you that.
We sold our house. And
how was Papa with that? Not very happy.
Papa, not very happy, but that's when he always told me.
But focused.
I got this. Don't worry, I got this.
Right. So he was very upset, but he was focused still.
Yeah.
On what he needed to do from that point. He was
mad, but he was focused on getting me home.
Right.
Taking care of me.
And so you were still recovering from your hernia at that point.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you when
this happened?
When all of it, with Jekyll Island. In your 30s?
Yeah. Susan was 7 years old. I was 30 when she was born, I think. So I was born in 37, late 30s.
Late 30s. So he told you that, and then y'all became focused on what you had to do next, and y'all decided to move back.
We had to move back.
So he tried to get his job back at the riverfront, I would think.
That's when we bought the house on Revere Street.
And y'all knew the area, so y'all were comfortable with that area. Y'all had friends.
Yeah, and it was the cheapest house because at that time we come back, he didn't have a job,
Right.
And
So that area was cheaper than, say, moving to New
that
Orleans?
particular house. And we had stayed at Merle's house for a while, a couple of weeks and all.
Merle, who?
Schulte, my
Who-
girlfriend Merle.
Who was your friend from
Yeah.
that you had met when y'all moved to Metairie?
Yeah.
You didn't know her before then?
No. We met when the kids were in school through PTA and
So it was like
and Papa and her husband Leonard were very good friends too. That became good friends, and Merle and I became good friends.
And they all had children,
Yeah,
which
had 4
matched
children.
your children.
Yeah, they were friends, and
So y'all would do things together.
yeah,
Had
so
parties.
We were friends over 50, 60 years.
Right. And Papa and Leonard were in the grotto together. They would do.
No, Leonard wasn't.
He was not.
Papa was, but not Leonard. He wasn't Masonic. No. The school and
Just social friends.
for sports. The kids played ball and they were coaches. We did Mighty Gras float together and just crazy things.
Mhm.
We had good friends. We had a good time. So it was hard. But he got a job back on the riverfront. That's when he became foreman. He worked for Lanks Brothers. And,
So when he came back, he automatically got a job as a foreman, or did he come back as a rail worker and then work his way up?
worked a little while, but then he had that leadership quality.
Right. So
They had containers. That's when they started the containers, and they put him in charge of the containers.
okay.
And he could stack the containers on a barge like no other.
Uh-huh.
And that's what he had that aptitude or so. In fact, it was on television. They had this supervisor, and he was loading a container, and this young supervisor came out there and told he did. Papa that no, he wanted him to do this to the container, and Papa said that's not going to work. It's going to be bad. So they kind of went back and forth, and the supervisor said, "Well, who's the supervisor? You're a foreman. I'm a supervisor. You do as I say." And the barge flipped.
Mm-hmm.
When they did it, it flipped, and they had the whole barge. News people, cameras all out there. They fired the superintendent.
So Papa didn't he got out of that one. He didn't although he was right. A lot of times, currently, people, even though he told them he could have possibly got fired,
Well, he had witnesses.
he had protection in some way.
He had witnesses, all the guys around there. The guys. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? The crane operator.
Right. So he's telling them we shouldn't be doing this, but we have to because that's what they told me to do.
Mm-hmm. So he had the witnesses,
So it protected him.
It was crazy. I was floating around the river.
So it seems to me like from when you were younger, you had a lot of hard times, but over time, things got much better
Oh yeah, with him.
with everything, your family and
No,
everything,
because of him.
because of him.
Because he was my everything. You just don't know, Jason. I can't emphasize it enough. He was my everything. He showed me.
So,
Go eat, baby.
well, tell me about tell me real fast about Papa's family.
Oh.
So he had
A lot of uncles and aunts that were very close.
he had a wider family than what you were used to.
Oh yeah, they all lived close together. You know.
In New Orleans.
Yeah.
And
he had an
he's
aunt and
always
uncle.
from New Orleans, correct?
Yeah. He had an aunt and uncle, Uncle Dan, which was my mother-in-law's brother. He was a Dan Huff. And he was married. They didn't have any children. And they were Papa's godmother and godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And they catered to him. He had an aunt that just had one daughter that lived around the corner. And at that time, he would go every week and get his quarter from her. At the time, that was a lot of money.
Right.
And he had another aunt and uncle who didn't have any children either. And they spoiled him. He was a Sydney Schulte. They spoiled him. And he more or less, how he turned out to be such a great husband because he was so spoiled. You know, his mother would lay out his clothes.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like he was very respectful of everyone.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He loved his aunts and uncles and all. And his mom, she would cook red beans. And he wouldn't eat red beans. She'd have to go buy him pork and beans.
Pork and beans.
And when we got married, he ate red beans. Because I loved him.
Now he was born in New Orleans, and his mom and dad were from New Orleans, or where are they from? Do you know?
New Orleans.
Okay. So his family was more traditionally from
His
New Orleans.
grandfather, in those days, his grandfather, Willie Schulte, and when the boys, all the Schulte children, he died. The father died, and in those days, if there was a single brother, it was his duty to marry the widow to raise the children. And he did. And that's one Papa called Bronco. And he cared for them. He was go visit. They lived around the corner. They owned a lot of houses. Double houses around there. And
And they would run them out.
yeah, the Schultes, they built my mother-in-law and father-in-law, their house, and the other brother, their house, and the other brother, their house, and they had their own house. And when they got just really, really disabled, Papa said that they would hear paper and all. He went to stay with them. He didn't sleep with them. He would go over there and make sure that they were okay, check on them. That's what it was, check on them when the mother and father couldn't go over there. He would go check on them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they would give him $1. And they saved newspapers. It's crazy.
So he had He
a
had-
family.
his brothers, or his sisters. What?
Yeah, he had two. Alice was the oldest, and then Joyce. He had a brother after Alice that died when he was 2 years old.
Do you know from what? Was it just
Pneumonia.
okay?
Actually, they say he spilled a pot of soup on the stove or something, and he got pneumonia and he died.
I don't.
So
I don't understand. They
He
spilled a
pulled
pot of
down-
soup on him,
yes,
so he got burned.
yes, and then they rushed him to the hospital, and he got pneumonia, and he died from the pneumonia.
That too.
That too. So when Papa came along, he was the Lord Jesus.
Right. He was sort of the replacement as best.
Yeah, the only Schulte boy.
Right.
His one brother never had any children. The other brother just had daughters. Something like my family right now.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel's the only one. Only Schulte to carry on the Schulte name. So that he grew up and they catered to him, Joyce and Alice, and he would tell them when they would get in a big argument. I remember there was a big fight, and Alice was fighting with her husband Carol, and oh God, and he just finally got up and he said, "Shut up!" You know, he told her to shut up and behave herself and quit, and she did. And Joyce, he'd tell Joyce, "Just sit down and calm down and leave it." You know, he would calm him down. They would listen to him. I don't know why, but they
Right.
would listen.
He would have a way of controlling the situation.
Yeah. I mean, they got into a fight where they threw. It was the 4th of July, and they were having, and Alice threw a beer bottle, and Joyce threw a beer bottle, and empty beer bottles, and he got up and he said, "You're lucky I'm not going to slap you down, but if you don't quit, I'll knock you down." And, you know, just telling them off like that. And they would listen. They wouldn't argue back with him. And the husbands wouldn't say anything because they knew he was
It's
right.
his brother, right? But they seemed to really get along
Oh, yeah.
in a brother-sister way.
No, he always got along with his sisters. They didn't have any disagreement like amongst themselves. You know, for Joyce and Alice would always get in fights,
Mm-hmm.
but Bill never did get in fight with any of his sisters. And because when my father-in-law got cancer, and we took turns staying with him at night because he would try to get out of the bed. Of course, he would fall. And Bill and I would go and spend the night with him. And then Alice would take care of him during the day. And then Joyce would go at night to take care of him. Go get something to eat, baby. I know you're hungry.